Hi everyone, so this is lesson 34, putting shapes together. We're going to talk a lot about exploring different shapes, what kind of shapes fit into other shapes, how you can make shapes with different shapes. So it's all about shapes and we're going to have a lot of fun exploring and drawing different shapes. So this first question says, use pattern blocks to make a hexagon. Trace or draw how you made it. Color the shapes to match the blocks. So if you don't have pattern blocks at home, you can either draw your own hexagon or use the hexagon that they drew for you. And then try to think of different shapes that could fit inside this hexagon. So I will draw some for you. Here's a triangle, a trapezoid, a rhombus. Okay, think about how these different shapes could fit into the hexagon. So if you were using pattern blocks, you wouldn't have this outline, and maybe if you put some triangles together or some trapezoids together or some rhombuses together, you could make a hexagon. So try to do that with some of these shapes. I'm going to show you one way you can do it. So if I had a bunch of triangle pattern blocks, I might put them together like this to make a hexagon. I also could have, these are not the best hexagons, I could also have drawn one line right across, and look, I made two trapezoids. So there are many different ways you could use those shapes to make hexagons. Practice problems. Problem number 3 says, draw lines and color to show how to make this trapezoid using 3 pattern blocks. So remember, if you don't have pattern blocks, you can just use the trapezoid that they drew for you. And think of the different shapes that you could fit inside this trapezoid. Remember, it says you need to use 3 shapes. So I'm not going to choose a really big shape that's going to take up most of my space. I have to fit 3 little shapes in here. And then it says to name what shapes you used. So we could try a triangle. We're not going to do a trapezoid because this is a trapezoid. We could maybe do a rhombus. Okay. So let's try a rhombus first. If I was going to draw a rhombus, it would look like this. Okay, so that's one rhombus and one triangle. That's 2 shapes. But we need to use 3 shapes. So what could I do to this rhombus to make it into 2 shapes? What could I do to this rhombus? I'm going to cut it in half. Now I have 1, 2, 3 shapes. And what shape did we use to make this trapezoid? We used 3 what? 3 triangles. Okay, let's do the next one. Okay, this is kind of a funky shape. Okay, so they want you to draw lines and color to show 2 ways to make this shape using pattern blocks. So you're going to do this 2 times. Okay, 2 different ways. This time they don't tell you how many shapes you need to use. So you could really use any number of shapes that you want. And there are many different ways that you could separate these shapes. So the first one that I see is if I put a line down right here, I make a rhombus. So 1, 2 rhombuses make this shape. Now, if I wanted to do it a different way, maybe I'll use 1 triangle. Oh, and look, this is a trapezoid. So I have made this shape in 2 completely different ways. Pretty cool. Let's go down to the last one. Color to show how to make this hexagon, but they tell you how many shapes to use. So the first one, you have to use only 3 shapes. And the second one, you have to use only 4 shapes. So let's look at the different shapes we could fit in. A triangle, a rhombus, a trapezoid. Okay, I think these are the main shapes that we could use. Okay, so let's think, how could we make a hexagon with 3 shapes? Now remember, we made a hexagon using triangles and it took a lot of triangles. Let's try it. If we use triangles, that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shapes. That's too many. So what else could we use? What if I tried to split it in half? Uh-oh. Now we only have 1, 2 shapes. So I've tried a triangle and I've tried a trapezoid, so let's try a rhombus. I'm going to draw 1 rhombus and then another line here, and that makes 1, 2, 3 rhombuses. So I use 3 shapes to make that hexagon. Now let's try to do it using 4 shapes. Okay, remember, the triangle took 6 triangles, so we are not going to use the triangle. Let's try to do it with a trapezoid. Uh-oh, we only have 1, 2 shapes now. Okay, well, what would happen if I kept one of these trapezoids, but I made a triangle out of the other one? Now we have 1, 2, 3 shapes. Well, we need 1 more. So what if I cut the rhombus in half? Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 shapes. They're not the same shape, but it didn't say that they had to be. It said to use 4 shapes. So we did it. So there are many different ways that you can make shapes using other shapes. And it's really cool to see that and to play around with it and explore how shapes fit into each other. So that is lesson 34, putting shapes together. Thank you. Bye.